What's up everyone, it's Anna, also known as that Star Wars girl, and today I'm going to be doing part 2 of my drawing Thanos tutorial. So now in this video, I am going to be putting down the values, and then on top of the values I will be putting down color. In the last video I did the sketch and then the inking. Now one of the things that is very important for people that are starting off in art to understand is that there's this very simple concept, and it was told to me in college, and it's something that I find so true the more and more that I create things, is that value does all the work and color gets all the credit. So what I mean when I'm talking about values is the fancy artist term for black and white. And one of the things that you will learn in art is that nowhere in the world will you ever find true black, and nowhere in the world will you ever find pure, true white. It just does not exist. Everything, because of, the way that science works, the black is always going to be tainted by something. It's either going to have, a blue, a cool tint, which is, blues, or a warm tint, which is, reds, and same with light. You might think that you're getting pure white, but there's no way for us to replicate it in the real world. When you're painting, the closest that you can get is, titanium white. And, when you usually you can just find, just black. There are different renditions of black. And, let me just show you for an example. So what I do when I render like this, I use Copic sketch markers. I know some people call it Copic, but I was told it's Copic, and it's really hard for me to break the habit. So I actually have all of the Copic markers that have been made. For just to give you a little thing, this is a color chart. This is something that this is kind of like your Bible when you're coloring things. So that way you can find, the right hues. But as you can see, it's so satisfying to fill this all in. And, there's a bunch of different types of grays. There is a cool gray, what is it called? It's like toned gray, I think is what they use. There's neutral gray and warm gray. So, and you can see, just from the bad lighting that I have from this camera, there's a bunch of, they look very different. Cool gray is very different than warm gray, even toned gray and neutral gray. So when you're going into, obviously Thanos doesn't have human colored skin, he's got purple skin, but does his skin have, a more of a blue tint, or does he have like a warmer tint? Even us humans have different like tints to our skin tones. I have, more of a yellow tint to my skin tone than, say my friend Savannah. She has, I would say sometimes she has more of a warmer skin tone, like so she has more pinks in her skin than I do. This has a lot to do with, people's, ethnic background. Some people are going to have more pinks in their skin, like for instance my sisters, they have more pinkish skin because they have all of my mom's, Scandinavian genes, where I have, the yellower tones in my skin tone because I got all the Portuguese from my dad. And so what you do first is you lay down all the values. So when you see a black and white image, what artists usually do is they put that down because what you're going to see is the highest value of contrast. That is what your eye is drawn to. So I always go in, I put the values down first, and then you put the color over the values. Now when choosing colors, like you can see in this color chart, there's a lot of different colors. And like I said, I have all of them. I have all of them. This was, it took me years to collect all of these markers because Copic markers are not cheap, but it's worth it, especially when you're going to be doing like in-depth drawings like this. And so when you have this many options, it makes it difficult to pick the right colors. Again, that's why you have a color chart. You look at the image, that's your reference image, and you go from there. So let's get right into this. I am going to start adding the values and then the color to Thanos. So let's get started. So here's the line drawing that we left off with in the last video with the inks. Now I just put down a base value, so that way this is the darkest his skin, or I guess the base value, and then I will go in the shadow area, but that is supposed to be, just the base value of his skin, and then I leave that little area for highlights. And then you can see as I go in with the darker values, that's going to add volume to it, so that way it makes it look like a three-dimensional shape. And like I said before in the video, value does all the work, but color gets all the credit. And you're really going to see as I go darker and darker, how it's going to add shapes, and or at least make you see the shapes in the volume, and it'll make it look more three-dimensional. Now, for some reason, no matter how much I mess with my lighting, it makes it look a lot darker than it actually is. I believe the darkest shade that I used was C5. I might have gone in by his eyes with, you know, C6, maybe even up to C7, but generally I don't like to go darker with skin tones, even if it is, you know, a non-human colored shade, you know, like Thanos, he's purple. But for some reason, the way that it looks in person is a lot different than when I'm filming it. I don't know why. Technology, it fails me sometimes. But as you can see, I added that, you know, value to his face, that added the volume, and I'm going in the rest of his, you know, skin and now on his costume, and I'm using different types of grays here. You can see that the cool gray I used for his skin is very different than the grays that I'm using on his costume. And I believe I'm using neutral gray right now. I used warm grays for the metal, and then on his skin I used cool grays. And you can see that empty space that I mentioned in the last video how I usually don't do heavy inking. I use the values to add that three-dimensional space. So that's why on the parts of his costumes, because I knew it was, you know, a different type of fabric, I didn't want to go in heavy cross-hatching. Now, again, this looks a lot darker in this video, but I learned this technique from looking at art from Blizzard, especially like stuff like Hearthstone. They always have like cool jewels and stuff, and I learned a technique for drawing jewelry that way, and it makes it look all mystical, and I like it. Now, this is a technique that I do with all of my characters in a sketchbook. I used to do squares or rectangles behind them, but I found circles are the easiest when I go into Photoshop to, you know, just clean up. And the reason why I do this to all my characters is it makes them stand out in my sketchbook. So every portfolio review I ever did, I got a much better response when people were flipping through my sketchbook, because it makes the character stand out, and even though it's a sketch, it makes it seem like a type of finished illustration, like a portrait. It's something that just adds that little pizzazz to it. Now, as you can see, I finished the values, but I'm going in with the color, and I'm putting the color on top of the values. And this is something, again, value does all the work, but color gets all the credit. So at the end of this, when it's all completely colored, it's going to be like, wow, oh my gosh, it's so colorful, you know, look at all the different colors. But the reason why they're so vivid, or, you know, they have that value to it, is because of the values, the grayscale. It's very, very important, and that's something that I have to emphasize when, you know, I'm talking to people that are, you know, wanting to get into art, especially, you know, when you're using Copics, or if you're going to be a colorist. That's something that's important. It's very important when you're doing paintings or in any illustration. It's important, but it's sometimes you can get away with it in watercolors or certain things if they're going to be you know, a brighter scale when there's not that many darks. I'm one of those people, I prefer high contrast though, so I'm a little bit biased there. And as you can see, I go in with a darker, so even the markers, even though they're colored, they have value to them in themselves. And so I go in with this darker color, because the way Thanos' costume is, even it looks kind of like a blue violet against, you know, the gold, and then it's a, even though, you know, it's still a type of violet, you know, his skin is a type of violet. They're, you know, two very different types of violet. His skin, I would say, is more warm, and it has yellows in it, whereas his costume has more blues in it. Now, the Infinity Stones. Ooh, look at magical stones. Gotta add sparkles to them. Sometimes after, when I'm just gonna leave this in my sketchbook, I'll go in and I'll add like a glitter gel pen. I didn't do that in the video just because when I add glitter to things, it messes up the way that the camera films it. So I always leave that for after. And as you can see, adding that to the gauntlet, again, it looks really dark in this video, but it's not that dark in person. I will show my finished sketch at the end here after, you know, we're done drawing this, so that way you guys can see the difference just between what I'm seeing as compared to what the camera is picking up. And as you can see, I'm even using different golds for his costume as compared to the gauntlet, because they are made out of different type of metals, and that's really important when you have, you know, two type of I wouldn't say metal is a fabric, but adornment. we can use that word. And it's, you know, this, you would say metals as compared to, you know, fabrics and stuff. You want to make sure that you can distinguish the fact that even though they're both metal, they're both very different types of metal. And see, as I'm just going in here with the highlights, it just adds that little pop to it, and I really like the way it looks in my sketchbook. And of course, outlining the character. And this is a nice trick if you're coloring on this with a white paper. You can always just outline it, white gel pen, and guess what? You colored in the lines. It's fun. And this is kind of a white chalk pen that I found at an art supply store, and I'm still experimenting with these pens, and I really like them though. And as you can see, there it is, Thanos full color, and it is my completed Thanos sketch. Alright everyone, well I hope you enjoyed this tutorial of drawing Thanos. Now this is my lighting, it doesn't work when I have, you know, paper, like white sheets like this. So this is kind of a scale on how big it is. I've done videos before where I, you know, talked about the type of paper. This is not a Copic sketchbook. Copic sketchbooks are awful. Do not buy them. Do not use them. Even though they're made for Copic markers, the ink does not mix with it, and you're going to get a very horrible acidy reaction. Your drawings are not going to come out the way that you want, and it sucks when you spend a lot of time on, you know, sketching it out, adding the line work, and then when you go to add, you know, the values, and then you go to add the color, it just turns into like this blobby mess. So don't ever use this. This is a render sketchbook. You know, a Crescent is the brand, but then render sketchbook is the type. Do not get the sketchbooks where you can pull out each individual page. You have to actually get the sketchbooks. Now this is usually a hardbound sketchbook, but I cut off the hardbound because I knew that I was going to be sketching and I need that, you know, mobility. And when it's a hardbound book, it makes it hard, you know, actually get it to be flat. But so yeah, this is Thanos. This is the size, so that way you can see. It's you know, you have to take in mind though, I'm a tiny person. I'm a little hobbit, so it might look big next to me, but it's not that big. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. I'm going to be doing, you know, a sketch or, you know, an art tutorial every weekend. So, you know, on Saturdays I will be putting out the sketch and inking, and Sundays will be, you know, the values and the color. So I hope you enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun to make. Drawing Thanos was, you know, a really fun project. This was a very different style than I usually do. I don't do a lot of like heavy cross hatching. I usually just, you know, do the outlines and let my values and my colors do all, you know, the work on the inside, because I think that's the funnest part of it. Yeah, sketching it out is fun, but I like coloring it. It's so satisfying. So if you have any suggestions or any characters you'd like to see me draw, let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, that's okay too. Prints of this are available on my Etsy, so if you want to check that out, that'd be cool. And yeah, until next time, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. Make sure you click the little button, that way you get notifications when I do other videos and live streams. And until next time, everyone, have a great rest of your day, and may the force be with you, because we are really, really, really going to need it. Bye, everyone. What's up, everyone? It's Anna, also known as That Star Wars Girl, and I have an Etsy store, so if you've ever wanted to own a print of my artwork, this is the place to go. As you can see, I have a lot of recognizable characters, from horror films to heroes to Star Wars characters. Some of the notable characters I have on here are Darth Vader, which I did a couple live streams painting, so you can own a print of this painting. I also have Luke Skywalker, the binary sunset version, one of my favorite scenes in the original New Hope movie. I have Darth Maul, which Ray Parks himself actually complimented me on Instagram. And then last but certainly not least, Ahsoka Tano. So if you want to own any of these prints, go right on over to my Etsy store. Again, that's The Art of Anna, That Star Wars Girl, or TSWG for short. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. What's up, everyone? I have a P.O. box, so if you want to send me some mail, go ahead and send it to Anna, That Star Wars Girl, or TSWG for short, at P.O. Box number 28171, Santa Ana, California, 927998171. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much.